Hi, my name's Derek. I'm an alcoholic, and this is a presentation I gave at the recent Eastern Regional Forum on altruism being the key to service success, it's hard to say, in AA. Byline, using our selflessness in general service. Something I think a lot about as an individual member of AA. And really, it's about bringing recovery and what happens to people once they have a spiritual awakening into the idea of helping others via carrying the message as an AA member through our general service structure and through our own personal actions. So what is altruism? It's mentioned in the big book a couple of times. It's mentioned a few times in the doctor's opinion. Showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. Now, a disinterested concern for the well-being of others. I think what that's getting at is, and if you look at these synonyms underneath, it's a unself-centered, selfless concern for the well-being of others. And there's that line, and I'm probably going to show it to you later, but why not say it twice so it sticks? I need to hear it as much as you, probably even more. Our lives depend on the constant thought of others and how to meet their needs. I'm sure I'm paraphrasing that, but this idea of helping others and not thinking about what you get out of it is very much at the heart of an AA recovery, and it's something we need to think about and bring to the party when we do service. I think for AA, I think it's a great opportunity to practice altruism is to do general service. So from the doctor's opinion, let's look at what the big book says, because that's way more important than me prattling on. Though we work out our solutions on the spiritual as well as altruistic plane, we favour hospitalisation for the alcoholic who is jittery and befogged. Really, it's the first part of that sentence that blows me away. It says that we have a solution for alcoholism that is twofold, not onefold. It isn't just spiritual, it's spiritual as well as altruistic. So there's a whole second pathway for growing our recovery. Yes, there's the spiritual pathway, but here it's clear. We also need to help others and be altruistic. We need to help others selflessly and grow a relationship with a higher power. And I don't know about you, but with me, once my higher power turned up, and it's in every step prayer that you read, I will do thy will, show me how to help others. So God's will, once it turns up, this relationship with God, God consciousness, when God speaks to me, it's always how to help others. So once God turned up, my helping of others, my altruism kind of went on steroids. It was a lot more directed. But my sponsor in my early days, this is just me, used to say to me, don't wait for God to turn up to start helping others. Be altruistic right now because you can. You know how to be nice to others. Just go do it. Start living life like an older, sober member. And it was really interesting, helpful advice, because here's the kicker. I actually could. And when God turned up, I just got better at it. Anyway, so there's the first thing. We doctors have realised for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics. So this is the doctor looking at us from the outside, and the doctor's opinion is a non-spiritual opinion. Like Dr. Silkworth wasn't sort of like a spiritual guru. He was a medical, psychological guru, right? So what we talk about in different ways, he saw as moral psychology, as being really, I love this idea of urgent importance to alcoholics, because he was seeing them die. They needed to kind of get on it quickly because they didn't always keep coming back. Sometimes they just stayed out of the hospital. They didn't come back because they were 6 feet under already. And he also says, a little bit later in that sentence, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good. So that's another phrase, a sort of a non-AA term, but the idea of being good, applying the powers of good. He's not mentioning God driving that. He's just going, this is what I see these guys doing. They're good. They have power from being good. So this is a really interesting thing, the idea of being altruistic, moral psychology, which, as it turns out, is a whole field of psychology. Historically, the term moral psychology, and let's assume this is, we're back in 1938, 39 when the doctor is using this phrase. Let's go, it was then to narrowly relate to refer to the study of moral development. So developing morality. If you look at the other words, just, casting your eye over this paragraph, again from Wikipedia, ethics, philosophy of mind, moral identity, moral action, moral motivation, moral responsibility, moral sensitivity, altruism, psychological egoism, moral luck, moral forecasting, moral luck. So it's an interesting field. Basically, find something that's kind of vibey and put the word moral in front of it. It does start to feel like the big book when you read all. This is my experience of it. So we're apparently growing this inside of us when we start doing 12-step recovery. That's what the doctor saw. What a marvelous thing. Note, nothing specifically spiritual to see here or read here. This is not a spiritual take on psychology. It's a moral take on psychology. And so the idea, and I found this very useful getting sober. I need to work on being moral as well as spiritual until the two coalesce, they come together. And I found that came when I found my higher power turned up. And then to me, there was no difference between spiritual and moral. But they probably started as two separate lanes in a recovery highway to begin with. Anyway, the unselfishness of these men, the doctor's opinion continues, as we have come to know them. This is to me, by the way, this sentence is about how we end up. I always show this paragraph to sponsees when they talk about, well, what does this sober life look like? I go, well, this is what the doctor saw in the guys who are having a sober life. The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has laboured long and wearily in this field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. And I love this idea of we have to believe in ourselves, but more in the power. So this idea of self-belief, it's a very strong thing that he saw in our founding members. But when you look at that top part of that, unselfishness, no profit motive, so nothing in it for me, and a community spirit. Again, this doesn't sound spiritual. This just sounds helpful and moral again. So community spirit, a feeling of involvement in and concern for one's local community. And yes, the word spirit is there, but not spiritual. It follows, if anyone felt, as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental. Let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel after many years of experience. I got this snipped from the internet. Look at all these spelling errors. I'm glad I'm not the only one who misspells things when I type things out from the book. That's great. That we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehab of these men than here it comes, the altruistic movement now growing up amongst them. So this is the point. Phrases like it's a selfish program or I'm here for me, fine, whatever. But if we don't look altruistic to the outside world, to friends of AA, they're probably not going to trust us and let us in to their world in quite the same way as if we look selfless or in fact are selfless. And so when I do service work in AA, when I go out and speak to a Rotary group or when I go to a rehab or a detox, I take my recovery with me. I can't do general service. I can't be a GSR or a DCM or the PI coordinator for my area unless I am very, very well recovered. This has been shared with me by both sponsors and service sponsors through older sober members. If I go to a committee meeting, say for my district, and I get a resentment. And by the way, if you want a resentment, go to a committee meeting in AA. You'll get one, trust me. That's been my experience. If I don't go home, do inventory, and then call my sponsor right away, then, AA is going to take me down. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I need to have great recovery to be ready to do service. I think that's why, GSRs, it's suggested in the manual, be sober 2 years. And I think it's not just, learn about AA and whatever. It's, get your recovery going. Become selfless. Be more interested in others than yourself. And you'll probably do better in general service, And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for me in general service personally is my self-centeredness getting in the way of being helpful to others across my area, my district. We move on to there as a solution. None of us, it says in there as a solution, makes a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. So we don't live and breathe this. We've got to be good husbands and wives and spouses and parents. We've got to be good workers. We've got to be out there and living this busy, helpful life. But then, we've also got to help AA members. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies in our respective homes, occupations and affairs. What about our principles? Being helpful to others all the bloody time. All of us spend much of our spare time. So, okay, I used to be a golfer, now I'm in AA. And I'm not thinking what they're saying here is, this is a personal interpretation, give up all your hobbies and use all your spare time to help others within AA. But for me, that's been, largely speaking, my experience. I asked myself a few years ago, why have I stopped going to all of the Bulldogs home games? One of the reasons was I'm going to committee meetings on a Sunday afternoon when they play. I'm literally giving up going to football to help others stay sober, to carry the message, and not a problem for me. I think that and it was nice. I didn't feel like I was giving up football. It just happened that I did. And then it took me about 2 years to go, hang on a second, I think I've given up going to football because I'm in AA. And God and my own willingness took me there. It was a lovely realisation. All of us spend much of our spare time in this sort of effort, and we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated they can give nearly all their time to the work. And I know people like that across AA Australia who actually give up a lot of their time. And we can't be self-centered about how we spend our time within the rooms. If we're letting people down outside, you might be involved in 10 committees, but you're also making amends to everyone in your life outside of AA. You might want to look at that. But, for me, this is the hardcore part of recovery. This is probably the toughest sentence. This is the real throwdown, gauntlet at our feet. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. All right, so that links to step one. Step one, I have a medical condition called alcoholism, and if I'm not helping others, I will die. I'm only an ex-problem drinker. The problem will turn up again, and I'll be a problem drinker again if I'm not. It doesn't say going to meetings, does it? It doesn't say. It doesn't say. Doing other, like just keeping coming back. It says constantly thinking of others and how we may meet their needs. I think that's why in AA we have that slogan, think, think, think. Maybe this is the constant thought that think, think, think on that card in that Gothic writing. It was the last slogan in my home group that I got my head around. Well, I get, keep coming back, and I get, this one over here and just for today. And think, think, think. And here it is. That's why, in my view. No mention here of only helping other alcoholics. It just said others. So this is a 24/7, constantly helping others program. Grow your altruism, grow your recovery. I truly believe that. So if I'm to believe what the big book says, spiritual recovery leads to thinking of others over self, including within AA itself. So why is it, given this, that we have less areas sending delegates to conference than ever before, such a low percentage of groups participating in district and area level? At least where I'm from, we can't fill committee positions. The most recent AA board newsletter just came out, I think, last week, and I'm making this video in early September, or actually late September 2022, describing our financial outlook as continuing to be gloomy. So our hands aren't coming out with money. we're not contributing to AA to the point where we're truly solvent and able to, finance projects and advisory actions. We're slowly getting there, but there is a lack of participation and putting in the very committees that actually keep AA Australia as an organisation going. And for me, I look at those empty chairs, and people often say, oh, the structure's not right. The structure's not right. And I'm going, I'll be honest, this is just a personal, individual member's viewpoint. Maybe there is no right structure if people aren't being altruistic enough to fill those positions. And I'm not talking to you directly. I'm just being logical. if recovery grows me to the point where I'm constantly thinking about how to help others, some of those others are AA itself. Some of those others are the alcoholics that haven't come to their first meeting yet because they haven't seen a poster, seen a Facebook ad, or whatever it is that we could be doing. I have found that when all the committee and general service structure positions are full, more activity carrying the message into the community happens. There's more schools talks, there's more posters in laundrettes, all of that stuff seems to happen when we have the numbers doing it, and supporting groups to do it. That's just my personal experience. So altruism and general service, is there a connection? So what's the connection between where recovery takes us and general service, 12-step related or not? Okay, so the way it works, if I'm reading the big book correctly, is we take step 3, all right? We get all those pages in the big book up to page 58, I think it is, where we think about whether we have alcoholism and whether we're in on the idea of this solution, a spiritual solution. God might work for us and helping others might work for us. And when we've considered that for about 90 pages, if you include all the Roman numeral ones, we take step 3, we're all in. We want what they have and we're willing to go to any lengths to get it. Any lengths to get it. We take step 3 and beyond and move towards a complete spiritual awakening. And, it's interesting. God, that third step prayer, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. And there's helping the others of thy power, thy love, and the way of life. So may I do thy will always. I don't know about you, but I've never done God's will where God said, be selfless, be selfish, stay home, watch Netflix, or something like that. Just eat a whole bunch of ice cream, buy a block of chocolate and eat it. It's usually go and help others. In fact, I've never really been assisted by my higher power, I feel, where helping others hasn't been a part of the suggestion. And that's literally what I'm reading with that third step prayer, and it's been my experience. Then we do God's will. We become altruistic, including service. In other words, we actually desire to help others ahead of self. I was doing so much committee work, I just noticed I stopped going to the football. Do you know what I mean? This was such an exciting realization because it meant that 12-step recovery actually works because I'm wanting to turn up to committee meetings. I'm wanting to put business cards around my local suburb that say AA on them, Make it plain, it says on Big Book 94 and working with others, make it plain he is under no obligation to you. This is about the newcomer, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. And this is what the working with others chapter is telling us to share with a brand newcomer as part of a 12-step conversation. So, the writing is on the wall. If you do AA, you can pray all you like, go to as many meetings as you like, but if you don't start sincerely wanting to help others and being altruistic, you're probably not going to get there. It's a helping others ahead of self type program. Again, what a gauntlet being thrown down at our feet. And then some of us then study the concepts and traditions because we know we can't be altruistic until we absorb all of those suggestions. It's hard to be a member of the AA service structure and conference if you haven't read the conference charter. And, I find it's one of the easiest documents to get your head around. It's only 3.5 pages or so, and it's pretty simple. And I found myself wanting to do that. And it was the altruism, it was just nothing more than grassroots recovery working in my life. And if you look at the concept and tradition number ones, by the way, I love the way the traditions read. Our AA experience has taught us that. I think that little prefacing statement is as important as the traditions itself. We have learnt this stuff through the hard way. Life is a pretty awful teacher sometimes. And so our experience as AA members is, number one, each member of AA is but a part of a great whole. AA must continue to live or most of us will surely die. AA what? The people, the organisation? Do you know what I mean? Like AA must continue to live. This not-for-profit organisation that has a structure and needs people to be connected, communicated with and to, that makes good decisions quickly and spiritually. It must live or most of us will surely die. Hence our common welfare comes first. Common welfare, AA, it's a strong case that we need a good service structure, people putting in a healthy organisation. But individual welfare follows close afterward. Again, tradition 1 to me reads literally, AA comes before your individual welfare. You know, if you put your welfare first, you probably won't put in enough to AA itself as a whole. Okay, so, and I really take that to heart. I need to care less about my welfare, give up my Sunday afternoons, give up my Tuesday nights whenever I have to do committee work or whatever. And here's the thing though, there's a lot of wisdom here, because when I actually contribute to AA's common welfare, I actually feel better. Not always during the event, but before, not even before sometimes, but after. You know, I feel like, okay, that was tough. I didn't necessarily enjoy that particular experience, but I did it and I contributed perhaps to someone else's growth or, you know, potential recovery, or we made a good decision. That's growing my personal welfare, my individual welfare in a deeper way than me not doing general service work and doing stuff that I just like. Concept 1, final responsibility and ultimate authority for AA World Services should always reside in the collective conscience of our whole fellowship. That's a tough one to achieve if the whole fellowship don't give a crap. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to absorb concept 1 unless we're all giving this a fair dig and red hot go. And of course, that's probably impossible. But, you know, each group only needs one GSR, one person sitting in one chair to connect all the other home group members, no matter what their positions are, to AA as a whole. You just need one member per home group. And, you know, that's all it takes. And then we need a few committee members and blah, blah, blah. And we can actually get a lot done. You know, so it's an interesting world in which we live. Say again, though, we've got a lot of empty chairs at the moment across Australia with our service structure. So, you know, it's interesting to ask why. Where altruism, helping others, might be going in AA. So I don't want this to be a negative fest. I don't want to guilt trip anybody into doing this because they don't want, you know, oh no, you know, this member, I watched this presentation, he said I had bad recovery because I'm not the DCM of my district. That's not the point of this at all. It's just seeing that altruism is at the core of our recovery. And of course, giving back to AA is a part of where our altruism should go. 1, we can do 12-step conversations, phone line. You know, like I sometimes hear in various parts of Australia, we find it hard to get people to do the phone shifts. And you know, that's a difficult thing because someone's got to pick up the phone if someone rings at 3 a.m, and no one likes picking up the phone at 3 a.m, but hey, their welfare beats mine. So, you know, sometimes those calls, they're never fun in the first 30 seconds, but they can sometimes be quite amazing to be a part of 5 minutes in and beyond, when you think, okay, this person's desperate. It is 3 a.m, but boy, oh boy, maybe me picking up the phone and giving them some time and attention could be a turning point. And it's not about me. It's just about the fact that an AA member is doing that. Very beautiful thing. And that's, of course, contributing to the recovery legacy, contributing to the service legacy of AA, supporting such activities at group, district, area, district CSO, Central Service Office area level. So contributing to perhaps the coordination or the training for the people taking those shifts. You know, the idea of administrating something that needs to have infrastructure support. 3, recovery, service and unity, you know, sponsorship. I think we need to be really clear about this. When we talk about sponsorship in AA, it's usually recovery sponsorship, but I also have a service sponsor. And technically, though, we don't have unity sponsors. Service and unity are usually part of service sponsorship. To be honest, traditions and concepts can both be discussed. It's a very beautiful thing in my experience to have two sponsors, one for recovery and one for service and unity. Works really well. More information in the questions and answers about sponsorship pamphlet, where both forms of sponsorship are covered separately. The fourth suggestion is organising an AA event, conferences, fundraisers. I find there are some troopers in AA, entrepreneurial organisation type people, it's terrible English, people who are organised and can organise others, who can rally troops and produce Excel spreadsheets that inspire. They just know how to organise events, and that's a great form of altruism that I have no ability in whatsoever. And that's, of course, usually is fundraising and creating unity with existing members that newcomers can attend and feel the power of unity. I don't know about you, but I felt the power of AA unity before I felt the power of recovery in my life. It was the unity that kept me coming back. God wasn't in the room for my first meeting, but the unity in AA was. Outreach, public information, CPC corrections, the stuff of carrying the message outside the room. I love what was page 26 of the service manual prior to the update, where it says, the primary purpose of an AA group, not an individual member or AA as a whole, but the AA group is to carry the message to people who haven't heard it yet. And depending on the group and the message, it could be service recovery or unity that you're growing. Really fun one to do too. 6, by the way, number 5, if you're entrepreneurial at all or have an interest in marketing or advertising, boy, oh boy, there is so much scope for fun and games with public information in AA. I've had a ball. Committee, subcommittee work. Some of us are people who are attracted to organisations and heading committees and administrating things. District, central service area. Join the board if you've got 10 years up or more. The other thing we can do, of course, is to reach out to our professional networks if we have them and say to that person over there who's a non-alcoholic, can you be on our board, please? We've had some very high-profile board members who've done a lot of spruiking for AA in a way that we can't because of our traditions and our need to follow them as recovered members. So service, unity, recovery again, depending on what that committee's doing. 7, just talking to newcomers. One of the most powerful ways that I can help others, and this is recovery, it's not service or unity, is to simply, know what working with others, that incredible chapter in the big book suggests I need to share with newcomers, and lots of suggestions there to absorb and use. 8, telling people in our personal lives, including professionals, about our recovery in AA. That's something I was very reluctant to do early on, but I think it's, as Bill sees it, reading 120, or it could be 121, not page, but reading 120 or 121. I never remember which one it is. Beautiful, simple articulation of, hey, it's everybody's business how anonymous they are below the level of media, but that can change over time. And my experience has been similar to that Bill describes in that reading. You don't lose a lot by sharing with people in your personal life that you're in AA, especially if you feel that they can respect you for who you are as a recovered member. And that's, of course, about service and unity. It's a powerful thing to be a recovered member of this fellowship. And one of the reasons I always share I'm a member, this is just personal, is I don't want to get all the credit. I want to give it to AA because that's I'm not the miracle, AA is. And if I drove those people crazy when I was drinking, they need to know that I haven't got sober on my own. AA was the way I did it. And who knows who that will help as a result. That's a personal call, though. I'm not sharing that to get you to do that. I'm just sharing that's just my personal experience. Growing knowledge and awareness of all 3 legacies within the fellowship. Okay, now it says like now, that was it is like now. Like I'm hopefully, growing your knowledge and awareness of all three legacies and how they work. And, that's what we do. We do a lot of presentations within the general service community of AA Australia. We get together, the Darwin service meeting in all our affairs, it's called, on Wednesday nights. And it's, we get together and we talk service. We grow each other. We talk about the charter. We talk about the traditions, all the concepts, putting them in our lives. It's great. It's such a healthy thing to do, Number 10, thinking about or contributing to the future of AA through writing, discussing, or realising topics or advisory actions. And when I was at this Eastern Regional Forum, when I got to this point in the presentation, I asked, who's ever put a topic in the last 10 years? And I think half the room put their hands up, nearly. And so, this idea of having a vision for the future of AA or making AA more effective at carrying the message, we get to do that through submitting topics and writing them well and making them easy to understand and agree to. Really great way to be altruistic and help the entire fellowship out. Now, I will just ask you, as I did in the room when I delivered this presentation live, in the last year, based on your altruistic actions, how many boxes can you tick? And I bet you can tick more than a couple. And I didn't write this slide or this activity to make people feel bad or under. I know how much work we all do. Because, some of this stuff is real, just talking to another member about recovery. But there's things I don't do that I could do on this list. And so, it helps me grow without guilt. And isn't that what recovery is all about? Growing without guilt. Doing it because you want to, not because you have to. And I go back to this powerful throw down the gauntlet phrase from there as a solution. Where can I be of most service to AA right now? And I think this is the thing. When I look at that list, I know there's stuff I love to do. I love doing PI. I love talking to groups. I like putting up postcards and business cards and posters in public places and all that stuff. It lights me up. So I do a lot of it, but there's other stuff I don't do anything about. And I feel one of the questions I need to ask as a member of AA is, where am I needed right now? Where can I be of most use right now, as opposed to how can I have as much fun? How can I feel like I'm growing personally or self-actualizing, which, may not be as important, goes back to, the welfare of AA versus the welfare of me. And I come a close second, but I'm still behind the welfare of AA. And with so many empty chairs within our general service structure right now, I do feel that that's why I keep putting myself in general service positions. I'm not particularly good at it. I'm a terrible minute taker. I'm not that organised. I'm very messy. I'm too scatological for the linear thinking that is sometimes needed for decisions to be made effectively in professional settings. But if that's what AA needs, and I have the time and capacity, the skills, maybe I should fake it until I make it. Hey, I did it with my recovery. Maybe I can do it with the general service structure as well. And I'll end on this. I'm getting there. Hope I'm not losing everybody. And I think this goes to the thinking, this idea of, well, where does this idea, the welfare of AA, kind of beats the welfare of me? The self-centered thinking I've fallen into could be, I don't want to do this, I can't do this, someone else always does this and they're really good at it, they kind of own that space. Who else is on this committee? Oh, that person drives me mad. I love that person. So it's about being with the people, not carrying the message. Others will be better at this. I'll look like a fool. I'll fail. I've always done this type of task, so I'm good at it. Why should I change? I'm seen as the PI guy. Ego. I don't want to study up on traditions and concepts. No, that's really dry and boring. I'm not that good a reader, or I'm not a studier. I'll just do what my sponsor says, and not everybody sponsors as into service and unity as they are into recovery. You know what I mean? I haven't picked up a drink in a while, so why should I do more? We know the answer to that question. The selfless thinking that I've arrived at, either naturally or through conscious reframing with the help of my higher power, I want to help out. Maybe I can do this, especially if I ask for help. Actually, I'm bad at that. So maybe by doing this and asking for help, I'll grow a bit anyway. It's someone else's turn. I actually believe in the spirit of rotation. I don't want to own this spot forever. I know it's gone really well. Hand it over. It isn't just, we don't hand over just problems to God. We sometimes hand over service positions to someone else. Is potentially clashing with others a deal breaker? Okay. Don't I have a program for resentment? If I go to a committee meeting and I get resentful or have a clash, I can make amends. I can do inventory and call my sponsor, even in the middle of that committee meeting when we have a break. It's not as if I don't have a program for resentments. It's about helping, not being perfect. And I can ask for help. An empty chair is better than a martyr or a control freak. This is something we perhaps need as a banner on the walls. If I'm not there spiritually, if I haven't had that altruistic spiritual self-awakening, if I haven't, had that transformation of my thinking and perceptions, then maybe I'm going to bring a lot of defects of character to that committee, and I have to think about that. And I know of some people in our general service structure who have had to have chats with sitting members about that, and whether it's good for their recovery right now to be on that committee. And that's a really tough thing to broach, I should say. But it sometimes is something that at least needs to be considered by all concerned. Knowing more leads to spiritual growth. So maybe reading the traditions and concepts might actually do me some good. I'll get a service sponsor too. And it's interesting, I've spoken to a lot of people recently who've never heard of service sponsorship but are already doing sponsor. And the idea of doing recovery without a recovery sponsor, to me, seems rather insane. I know most members would go to someone who is doing that. No, don't just read the book at home, get a sponsor. Well, if I'm a DCM or I'm a GSR, an area delegate or whatever, why haven't I got a service sponsor? Trust me, it's done me a lot of good. It's not just about not drinking anymore. I've had a spiritual awakening. I actually want to help others, whether it comes naturally or whether I craft it. This has been my experience. But I'll end on this. And this is, of course, I'm liberating the step 8 and 9 promises here, or the last bit of these extravagant promises we think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. What this ultimately means for me, and I'm sure I'm not Robinson Crusoe when I say this, is we can't fast track people's spiritual awakening. That's their business. That's their deal. There may be some people who are just so selfless and spiritual, they're ready to be, a really great GSR after 6 months. There'll be some who may not be ready to be in that sort of a position for longer than 2 years, the suggested time. I mean, in the end, we've got these as general suggestions for time up, but I actually think time up is the starting point. It's actually asking someone to go, are you ready to be selfless? Are you ready to want to commit time to tasks that may not be appealing but need to be done by someone who cares a little bit more about AA and a little bit less about themselves? And again, I don't want to sound like I'm politicking here or spruiking people or guilting people into considering general service. I'm actually trying to just look at how our 3 legacies assist and evolve and help each other so that we have a healthy AA, which ultimately, at least in my case, has meant a healthy me. And it isn't about enjoying the work, it's about doing the work. And for me, it's about feeling satisfied afterwards. And I've come to love that feeling of spiritual satisfaction because the task itself wasn't amazing, but the result was. Or even when the result wasn't, we tried. And I was a part of that. And that makes me feel that goodness, that power of goodness that comes from helping others potentially right now and down the track. And I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation. Take away what you will, and hope to see you in a meeting. online or face to face. Cheers.